I'm here to talk about career options for historians in the private sector. I've been a self-proclaimed history geek since high school, and I've always been very proud of it. From 1997 to 2005, I worked as a curatorial intern for various local community museums. I researched the collections, cataloged artifacts, assisted with exhibits, and provided tours. During undergrad in my MA, I worked on research papers in history, anthropology, and foreign policy. But I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my degree once I was done school. So this is a career path that I kind of stumbled upon. So it's not the first sector that you think of for historians. We more traditionally think of historians in schools, universities, as teachers, museums, or government. But I have thoroughly enjoyed the private sector route, and today I just want to highlight it as an option and an opportunity. So before I start talking about where I work, I should clarify that we're not a traditional think tank per se. We're a historical research firm. We're not policy oriented, and we're not for profit. Specifically, I'm going to use then the example of where I currently work, which is public history, and Simon happened to work at public history as well a few years ago. We're located in downtown Ottawa. There are about 30 staff now, and the majority are master's graduates. There's one PhD student as well, PhD graduate. We also have some honors BA history majors, as well as people from related disciplines like anthropology, sociology, and archaeology. And we're historical research consultants. So in that case, I guess we would differ in the sense that we don't do as much policy research, and we're guided by the terms of reference that are provided by our clients. Now, you may wonder what exactly I mean by private sector historical research. We're selling a service, a package that we provide. Who pays for it? Well, our clients include federal departments like Justice, Indian Affairs, Transport, Public Works, Fisheries, Citizenship and Immigration, etc. We do a lot of work for the provinces. So one of our major clients, for example, is the Ontario Provincial Office of the Attorney General. We work for First Nations as well, and because sometimes we work for government and sometimes we work for First Nations, our research is based on factual evidence, and of course we're always objective. We're also very fast-paced because a lot of our work is attached to deadlines. And for instance, for First Nations, one of them that we do a lot of work for is the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations. We also work for lawyers, for museums, for authors, and the company, we did some work a few years ago for Michael Ignatieff before his political days. So we have worked for private companies as well, so our clients are very varied. We are also very project-based, so if you did a lot of work, if you worked at Public History or a similar company, and there's quite a few companies out there, your experience of the company would really depend on the project that you're being staffed on. The majority of my work focuses on Aboriginal history, and I would say the major demand on the industry right now is historical research that is needed to help settle claims and grievances of First Nations. If you're interested in the path of private historical research, to take a course in Aboriginal history would be worthwhile. I took about 6 or 7, so that came really handy, because it would help equip you with some of the major historical questions and issues and disputes in Canada today. And of course, if you look at the news, there's always something going on related to Aboriginal issues. It's something that will be valued for sure by a potential employer, and we do research in other fields, but about 80 to 90% of our research is Aboriginal research. Just to give you an example of some of the projects that we might do, for example, a First Nation might have a memory that at some point there's an abandoned railway and they don't know how it came to be across the reserve. There's no community memory of ever being consulted. So that's where we will come in, and we would help them document and find out where that railway came from, how the line came to be there, what evidence there is, whether they were consulted or not, under what historical legislation that action was taken. Basically all the details that they would need, including the evidence of the transaction, and it would help them decide, if appropriate, whether or not there are any grounds for complaint or whether they're satisfied with the railway line location. So those are really interesting projects. So that's the kind of work that we do. So for instance, in this case, we would provide them with the initial agreement that shows the transaction that took place, and all the historical documents, the surveys, the maps, all the correspondence documenting what happened back then, and then we provide all the evidence for them to decide. Another thing, for instance, that would appear in the contract is whether there's a reversion clause where the land would return back either to the band or, in this case, usually to Canada once the land is no longer in use. So for instance, if that railway line is abandoned, well, why hasn't it gone back to Canada or the band. Just to give you other examples, a few years ago, I researched all railway lines affecting reserves. And the neat thing about this project was that I learned a lot about the legislative process that was involved, and the histories of the railway companies, and the history of Canada from coast to coast, because obviously the railway line helped in the development of Canada as a nation. Another interesting project that I recently worked on, and was probably one of my favorites, was the history of Inuit communities in the Arctic. And I had to research anthropological studies, church records, Hudson Bay Company documents, to track Inuit people from different communities. Because our work is so varied, our staff have experience in a wide variety of subjects. Working at Public History has allowed me to gain expertise in Aboriginal genealogical research, natural resource use, policy development, railway history, Arctic history, Métis rights, you name it. And each member of our team provides different areas of expertise as well. So although the majority of us are history graduates and anthropology graduates as well, there's a few other ones that bring additional expertise that's really handy sometimes. So for instance, one of our colleagues is an environmental science MA. So she is incredible when it comes to looking at maps and survey information and plans and that kind of information, just because I'm a historian, I don't do well with numbers, give me facts. So she's very helpful with that kind of work. We also have a geography double major with history, so he's also a great source on surveys and map analysis, etc. The majority of us are history and anthropology graduates, like I said, and what we deliver to our clients is a package or research product. This product can include, sometimes it's a database, so it depends what the client really needs, but it's a database, electronic or paper copies of the documents, expert analytical or chronological summary of event reports, media summaries, etc. So it really does depend on what the client needs at the time. Sometimes they want all of those, all in a nice little package. Sometimes it's just one of them. Other colleagues in the company have an even more direct role in the grievance resolution process. So for example, one of our colleagues has been qualified by the courts as an expert historian in a particular area. So in addition to submitting an expert historical report, she has often testified in trials, signed affidavits, and you can imagine it's just like a regular courtroom where she'll be cross-examined and just with historical facts and whatnot. So hopefully this will give you a good idea of the kind of work that we do. We spend a lot of time identifying relevant sources, doing research to comb through these sources, and collecting relevant documents, transcribing them. And when I mean transcribing, it sounds really easy, but sometimes they're just ink blots and you have to figure out what they say and analyze them for the client. Because our clients are usually lawyers, they don't think the same way we do, so we provide them all the information that they need to make those decisions, and it also goes to lawyers and it goes to government, so we also help with policy making and decision making as well. Other work that we do also are indices or lists describing all the relevant documents that were reviewed or found for a particular project, and we sort them, sort all the documentary evidence, and report on the findings in reports and meetings with clients or other kind of work. So the company is about 18 years old. My background, as you know, I was a history MA from the University of Western Ontario. I studied history, anthropology, public history, and obviously there was some research methodology involved, but a lot of it also you learn on the field. So some of my classmates from the public history MA program, not all of them ended up in the private sector, so some worked as RCMP analysts, the Canadian Historical Society, or museums. So there's lots of options out there for historians, so just so you have an idea. Our website, which is www.publichistory.ca, there's a career section that will tell you or point you in the right direction. My email is l.hernandez@publichistory.ca, and I brought some cards as well if you're interested, and please check us out. We also have a Facebook page, so you can get an idea of the kind of work that we do.